Rainy Tuesday, September 29th, 2015, for the Public Safety and Justice Affairs Committee meeting. Roll call, please.
Calling the roll, Mr. Gallagher.
Here.
Mr. Greenspan. Mr. Greenspan is absent. Mr. Germana. Mr. Germana is absent at the moment.
Mr. Germana is here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Germana is here. Mr. Harrison.
Here.
Ms. Conwell.
Here.
There is a quorum. Also like the record to reflect that Councilman Miller is in attendance.
Welcome, Mr. Miller, as always.
Thank you.
Public comment related to the agenda.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Reverend Pinckney.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. I want to just ask you, as you go forward in this item, Resolution 2015-0194, you're asking for funds to be allocated in the amount of $62 million. And I'm asking that in your language, you say it's for the preservation of public peace, health, or safety in the county. Please make sure that it is what it is. Some people have the belief that giving violence to promote peace is an answer. And I want to make sure when we have devices or any instruments or anything that we're doing, that it is to not only promote peace, but to represent it, and not when we're trying to raise our children or have an environment that we're trying to correct our children, that we don't have things that cause more disturbance. It's bad enough that the children are in the Juvenile Justice Center already, and the stresses that the staff goes through, the parents go through, and the children go through. And I want that each step that's going forward for this sprinkler process, that it is doing that. And when you speak of public health, public safety, and public peace, you also have to consider the private sector as well, of people who are affected and impacted by this Juvenile Justice Center. I will be coming back for other comment because I have to share some information with you at the public comment time for non-agenda items.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And as you'll see, this is for a physical change over at the Juvenile Justice Center that's necessary.
Right, and I want to make sure that it's done decently in order so that the staff, the children that are there, and the family members of those people are not affected.
Thank you. In your packet, you have the minutes of September 1st. If they're in order, I'll accept the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Thank you. 2015-0194.
Resolution number 2015-0194, making an award on requisition number 34179 to S.A. Cameo Company in the amount not to exceed $672,000 for the Cuyahoga County Juvenile Justice Center Sprinkler Modifications Project for the period 10/1/2015 through 4/1/2016.
Mr. Dever, welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, or should I say good afternoon, members of council. Michael Dever with the Department of Public Works, along with the county engineer, Dave Marquardt, with me. Dave is going to give you a little background on this project and why we need to proceed forward with it.
Good afternoon. The project itself is to modify the existing wet type of sprinkler system serving the detention rooms in the Juvenile Justice Center and convert that to a dry type fire suppression system. The issue was that there was vandalism that was occurring to the sprinkler heads, and we were looking for a method to maintain the safety but prevent the damages that occur when someone knocks the head off and the water discharges and creates a disruption both for the detainees as well as the water impacting the whole facility. A pre-action system requires the integration of the sprinkler system with the fire detection system. What that really means is in each cell, it's sensing both whether there's a smoke and whether there's the sprinkler head has been opened, either by vandalism or by heat. Both have to be sensed for the system then to be actuated. There's a control valve that would open up and let the water flow. If only the head is disturbed and there is no smoke there, the system will remain dry, and there'll be a alarm that goes back to the security system, and people will know that there's been some damage to the sprinkler head, but it won't actuate the control valve and have the flow of water come into the system. The project itself was competitively bid. 2 bids were received. One of those exceeded the estimate by more than 10%. The low bidder was S.A. Communal. Their SBE participation goal was 5%. They met that goal. We requested an alternative procurement method because S.A. Communal had failed to submit items A through G, and those are items concerning the qualifications of the contractor. So we requested waiving the informalities. The bid is still the same bid, but there was some documentation that they didn't submit along with the bid. We requested that documentation. We reviewed it, and everything was acceptable at that point. So that's why we're recommending award to S.A. Communal for an amount of $672,000. The estimate was $678,620. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Who came in second?
The second bidder
And were their documentations attached?
they had provided the documentation, but they exceeded 10%
Oh, they did?
of the bid.
They did, okay.
That was R.M. Riggle Enterprises.
Okay, they were over 10%?
Yeah.
Okay. Questions? Ms.
Through the chair to the engineer, will this new sprinkler project be protected and away from possible tampering?
There is no system that can be 100% protected, but the expectation with this is that it will discourage the vandalism, because the way they were hitting the heads, they were hitting them with a shoe. The head would be damaged. With the wet system, the water comes in and it goes everywhere, and it causes significant damage and disruption. With this, if the head is damaged, there's air that just comes out, and it senses that it's been opened. Then someone can react to the alarm and go look for the incident and see where it took place. All they have to do is replace the head. There's no water that comes out. It doesn't do any damage or major disruption.
So on that point, if water doesn't come out and it was a real fire in that cubicle,
there's a
How is
sensor
the
for
air-
smoke.
okay,
That's that's why it's a two-part system.
okay. So it senses the smoke, but there's still no way to put it out at that point. Is that a
No,
safe?
no. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Didn't mean to be confusing. If it senses both, the head's open and it's sensing the smoke, it opens a control valve. The whole system will fill up with water, and it works as a normal sprinkler system at that point.
Okay, that's the new system.
Yes.
Okay, and
Sorry about
is
that.
there any removal of the old system?
There's pipe that's being removed and sprinkler heads that are being removed. Those will be replaced.
Okay, is that included in the cost?
Yes.
And can the parts that are being removed be reused in any way?
No, we had talked about that originally. The sprinkler heads will still be the same type. It's just that the building or fire code requires that if you work on the system, you replace the heads with new ones.
I'm just wondering, you know, when you rapid and reuse, when you figuring out a agency or someone that might need them, what will we do with them on a regular? Just toss them out?
You have to throw them away. They can't be reused,
Okay.
according to the code.
And then there are some kind of gate mechanisms that can go over the heads and the water still flow out. Have we thought about using those?
No, there'd have to be a means to install those, but the thought is that once the detainees find out that there's no impact, all it does is it sends a signal, and then they get fixed. That will discourage the damage.
Okay.
Mr. Germano.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I heard you say that it was heat, and now you're saying it's smoke.
There's, yeah.
Is it smoke and heat, or is it heat or smoke? Because
It's both.
It's both.
Yes. And I apologize for that confusion. The head will be affected in two ways. If it's heat, then it's a fire, there's smoke. There's also a sensor that senses the smoke. So the head opens up to actuate the system. The other sensor is sensing the smoke, which then turns on a control valve that activates the fire system at that point.
How many sprinkler heads is involved in this?
They're in 180 rooms.
And I'm wondering, in the design and the plans for the Juvenile Justice Center, wasn't this contemplated that there'd be was that the state of the art at the time? It seems to me, I'm just wondering if the designers or the builders or somebody could be responsible for not designing this properly. That's causing this extra expense. Have we explored that at all?
Yes, that's a good question. That was one of the first questions we asked. Is the sprinkler head, well, there were two things to consider: the height of the room and the sprinkler head. The first one we looked at was the sprinkler head. There's very few sprinkler head types that are available. I think there were 3 that were looked at. They're all similar, and this one that was used in particular was kind of a standard for a correctional facility. So it met all of the building code requirements, all the fire code requirements. And it actually was a sprinkler head that was recommended for correctional facilities. The second part was the height, because the ceilings could have been somewhat higher. We actually had a K2M go out, take a look at the building and assess whether or not it should have been built higher so that they couldn't be reached as easy. They said that the room design itself met the current building codes and correctional facility codes. So with both of those being satisfied, I don't think there's any means that we can go back. There's no errors or omissions or violations of the design requirements that we can go back on the original designer for.
Mr. Germano, once we, the problem was because we sent this to the law department, we signed off, the judges signed off, the county signed off on all the plans, and that stuck us. Even though this was a clear design flaw, we accepted it. So,
Well,
Was that the commissioners?
yes. Well, it was, at that point, the commissioners washed their hands of it because of the lawsuit. So it fell directly on the juvenile court administrator and the judges who were running the show. And as we have to speak later on, our regular justice center, we are learning from our mistakes as we move forward on the design and build of justice centers. I would hope we learn. So any further questions? Any need to move this forward under an emergency? And if so, what is the emergency?
Well, I would suggest moving it along just because obviously it's until it does get corrected, we could still have these incidents taking place. Right. And we're hoping to satisfy any of the questions in committee here.
Okay.
So we could possibly move it on second hearing.
With that being understood, I'll accept a motion on Resolution 2015-0194 to move forward to the full council under second reading suspension. Do I have a second?
Second. Mr. Chairman, can I just ask another question?
Sure.
Because I'm thinking of it as we're going along here. $672,000 to fix a problem. How bad are the problems when these leak? I mean, what's the damage that it's causing?
Well, so far, the total damages have, actual cost damages are about $47,000. But there's also disruption to the detainees. There's some danger of taking them out of the room to move them to get everything cleaned up and fixed. So it's not just a financial concern, it's a safety concern as well.
Mm-hmm.
And do all 180 rooms have to be, I'm just wondering if there's any possibility of remediating this to where we don't have to do all the rooms.
We felt like all the rooms were necessary because the occupants talk. And so if they found that there was a particular room that wasn't corrected, that may be a target. So we felt that we needed to fix them all and protect them all this way.
How many incidents have there been?
Total number of incidents, I don't have that with me. I think it had to be at least 20 or 30 incidents.
And the prisoners that do this damage, do they get charged with damage to property?
As I understand it, the parents get charged with the costs of the cleanup.
Maybe the juvenile court can answer that for us. This has been a question we've asked in the past, and it's a good question.
Good afternoon, Karen Lippman with Juvenile Court. As always, a pleasure to see all of you.
Wonderful to see you. You brought sunshine to a gray day.
Well, thank you very much. In 2015, we've had 4 incidents of this occurring. I'm not sure since the detention center opened how many incidents we have had, but this year there have been 4. Youth are charged with a felony charge. They do get an additional felony charge, and there is a restitution for the repair and cleanup. Whether we're able to collect that, I don't know if those funds are actually collected, but that is what occurs.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm just. Do we have the money for doing this, or are we going to have to bond this, or how's that going to work? Do we know that part of it?
This would be out of Public Works budget.
I think there's the funding's coming from 2014 sales tax revenue
Bond issue. Yeah, we planned for this project in
It was
late 2014.
2 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so then we bonded at last year's bond issue.
And the concern, if I can, going forward, it's not just that the damage, I mean, it's gonna continue, and that internal disruption of the justice facility itself makes things dangerous. And again, as these kids talk, you know, they could be setting something up there, so the more we can get in there to correct the problem. Once we discover a problem, God forbid one of these kids slips and falls, and now we're looking at a lawsuit if we hadn't fixed what we know is to be a flaw. So we really have no choice on the insurance side of it and on the safety side of it. We just have to do this. Anthony?
Just had two questions. We answered one, just how was this being paid? So we got that answer. My other question, did we look at, you know, some places I've been in, they have like the little metal boxes around them, look like little crates that bolt to the ceiling that covers light fixtures. So if folks try to knock the light out, they can't, like on side of your house, if you have a floodlight or something, have a little box around it. Have they thought about that idea? So if they tried to hit the sprinkler, you know, I'm sure that's much cheaper than $672,000.
I think the original architect looked at 3 alternatives to try and solve the problem. I don't remember discussing that specifically, but there's some difficulty trying to connect it to a suspended ceiling.
Suspended ceiling.
Yeah.
Okay. Because of the layout of the building, I guess you couldn't do that, huh? And what were the alternatives that the architect looked at besides this one here?
Well, the first one was monitoring and security cameras. And there was an issue with the potential of putting cameras in and sensors. They talked about putting sensors up that near it, that in the event that it was being tampered with, there would be a signal go somewhere. That was not, there were no designed systems that were available for that, so it would have to be something created. They felt that first the cost would be extremely high, and secondly, it was something that wasn't tested, so we weren't sure that that'd be a good solution.
I recall asking the question, and the question that I had was the way it sits in the ceiling is why we couldn't put a wire basket up there to protect it. And the answer that I was told at the time, whether or not it's true or false, but they told me that it couldn't, that would disrupt the flow of the water, and nobody would guarantee if that would be altering the ability for the water to spread out, and it would take away any guarantees we have as far as the system is concerned, because in essence we'd be altering the system, and we couldn't do that. I don't know if that's true, but that's what I was told.
The other problem with the baskets or the cages around them is that that's contrary to what is American Correctional Association allowed, because you can't have anything up there that with a cage that's weight
something to it.
Exactly, that's weight bearing, that you can put any weight on it. So it wouldn't really do any protection, because they would probably be able to bang that off as well.
See, great minds think alike. So. But yeah, it sounds like an easy fix, and there's just so much associated with detention centers that you have to be careful and leave it to the criminal element to figure out how to disrupt the flow, and no pun intended. So anybody else? You have anything further?
The other alternative that was looked at was raising the ceiling.
Right.
That was a big question.
Concrete ceiling.
And it was quite expensive.
Right.
I think the cost was greater than the cost of the third alternative, which is the one we chose.
Right. Yeah.
My question is for Karen Littman. I'm going back to the point where you stated we are now. When did we start adding the felony to the juveniles for disrupting this?
As soon as they're identified as the individual that did cause the damage, they are given the additional charge. So it's a felony vandalism charge.
So this building was built 2011 or 2012? I can't remember when
was it built, or when did we move in? We moved in 11.
Okay. And in 2011, did we have any of these type of incidents in 2011? Have they been ongoing since
I think it was, forgive me if I don't have an exact date, but I believe it was about 4 months in as they moved into the detention facility. That's when the first incident had happened.
So those ever since it started, all of those juveniles have received this felony
Yes.
type thing. And some of the juveniles in there, are they in there for misdemeanors, or they're all in there for felonies?
At any given time, the vast majority of the youth that are at the detention center are there on felonies. That being said, there may be misdemeanor youth that are in there. But based on our detention admission screening instrument and that they have to meet a certain criteria to actually be held in the detention center, the vast majority do have a felony charge pending.
And they're told, I'm assuming upon arrival or whenever they come in, the do's and the don'ts. And does that include the tampering? Are they made aware
I don't
when
think
they come
they're
in?
told don't tamper with the fire sprinkler, but because I think that once you tell them don't tamper with the fire sprinkler, the first thing they're going to do is, oh, where is that sprinkler that I can tamper with?
But my concern is if they're going to get a felony, something that, I mean, unfortunately, those are youthful pranks that kids do. I guess we're going to have to figure out a way that they're made aware of that. And once the problem is fixed, it doesn't mean that somebody still won't try. You can still, I guess, implement that in their arrival process, that this could add something else onto your, I mean, we don't want to leave them, I know, Mike, but we don't want the kids leaving juvenile justice center with more on their plate than
more
they went
skills.
More skills.
Okay, I'm not going to
Well,
touch that.
in society, you have to follow the rules, and if you don't understand the rules, there are crimes, there are punishments for crimes. So
Mr. Chair, just
I don't want to send these guys to martial law and get them a degree before they turn 18. But anyhow, this is unfortunate. But I think our hands are really tied. We have to do this, and we find a problem, we have to correct it. And it pains me to do that, but it is what it is. So
I just had Mr. Frank Bowe was here. What are they using? Is the same system that they're putting in now? Is that in the county jail, or is it different?
Do you know? I don't know.
Chairman, Council, I believe it's the same, but I can confirm that because it's 40 years old.
Well,
So.
just a thought. Whether it was the same, and I mean, I'm sure they're knocking stuff off too. But just a question.
We knock on wood. I hope none of the inmates are watching, but we haven't had that problem at the main Justice Center.
Okay, thank you.
and when you're an adult and you're facing another felony, you think twice about it usually. Yeah, but at 18, it all goes away, which is a big problem, but it is
Big problem.
It is a huge problem. But anyhow,
our state
no
legis-
further questions. I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Thank you very much. Mr. Dever, under discussion items, my favorite, actually I have two. It's that security niche on the 8th floor, and actually, and I don't know if this is you, and I think it might be, is in the springtime, we're gonna have that sun in the morning coming in the main entrance where the desk folks are blinded by the light, literally. I've been told that they're in the works on that. I would hope that you keep an eye on that and have something ready to go before we hit spring. But on the 8th floor security desk, I know it's necessary, but the way in which it's been designed, I think, is really horrible for an employee to have to sit there. And I know she's been told that there's a question on budgetary issues as far as correcting that.
Yeah, in regards to that item, we're working with the law department right now, Anka Davis in particular, about doing an amendment to the lease currently with Geis on how to perform any type of work within the building here, and then how to pay for that also. Mm-hmm. So some of those items, including that item on the 8th floor, the security desk, At one time, I was looking at some other furniture to bring over. What was previously on the 8th floor of Courthouse Square, outside of the executive's administrative area. Unfortunately, that same desk is being utilized over at Witness Victim, and so I didn't want to take it from there. So we have a drawing for what needs to be done here, but until I get this lease amendment to the lease agreement with Geis in place on how the process to go about paying for and doing any type of work within this building. So I'll have that. Included with that, though, is the council clerk had been in touch with me in regards to some other items, in fact, impacting this chambers. Like the sun typically coming in along here and have proper blinds put on here so that the sun doesn't come through, so you have a darkened room.
I know these are small items, but you know these have to go to not only the comfort of our employees, but you know their ability to function in their jobs, and I think it's important that we maintain some sort of a progressive attitude towards helping them help us as far as dealing with the public and the security in the building. And being a new building, I knew we'd run into these glitches, and I understand your position with Geis, but we have till spring on the first floor, and it's open-ended on the 8th floor, but it just is a suggestion that I've been making since we've been here for quite some time and before you. So I just want to make sure that you keep an eye on it.
Yeah, we do have a plan for it now. It's just to get it to get that amendment brought through, and then I would expect us to move forward with that. Okay.
Okay, fair enough. Mr. Miller and then Mr. Germano.
On the 8th floor security desk, what's the problem and how much money are we talking about to fix it?
Currently, where the protective service officer currently sits, there's a slight blind spot in the area where she is sitting. So the intent is to pull back one of the false walls just a little bit, so there's a clear line of sight going into the facility, into the executive's area, and then also making some slight adjustments to the desk on how it sits. I'm sorry if I'm not clearer on it, but as for the cost for it, Geis has got an estimate at about, I'm sorry it's not exact, but I think it was about $4,800 to make these adjustments to it. So as soon as I get some more of those details in place, I can shoot an email just so council's aware of it.
Not a big deal. Mr. Germano?
Mr. Chairman, this is not on the agenda, but just this last week I got a call from one of my constituents that works in this building, and she was complaining about the restrooms in the maintenance. Have you received calls about the women's restrooms in this building?
Well, we do, whenever there is issues in the building whatsoever, there's a work order system to, and in each of the respective departments has a go-to person that can forward a work order if it impacts their respective department or any of the common areas. That goes to Geis, and then in turn it can be addressed. At the same time, we encourage them to contact us. I meet with Geis at least twice a year to go over if there was issues within the building, and that's within the agreement itself, is to meet and get any updates on any issues. Could be cleaning or how the restrooms are being utilized. Some of the restrooms, much like on this floor, if you have multiple hearings during the day, they tend to get used more often, and so they need to be serviced that much more. So those are the kind of things that we try and get to. You know, we're 14 months into the new building, and the building's getting stretched out and worked, and now it's, you know, you're starting to understand, you know, how they should service it also. So I'm continuing those discussions, so if there is something that does come up, you know, Al Christ, who's the manager for Geis for this facility and the 9s next door, I have a great relationship with him, and we try and get on things as soon as possible.
Anyone further? Thank you on that. Damper program, did the RFP went out?
Yeah, actually, Mr. Chairman, that item, the RFP went out. It was advertised 9/23, and then also today it's being advertised. There's a pre-bid meeting scheduled for this Thursday at the old courthouse to walk it with the abatement contractors, and then the bids are due on the 9th of October.
Okay, thank you.
And then that'll probably come through this committee for approval to move along.
Thank you. Questions on that? There we go. And we were going to have an update on the Justice Center itself as to the plans. I know the executive, 2 meetings previous, had stated through his representative, Mr. Kraus, that the plan would be forthcoming within weeks, not months, and Mr. Kraus had every intention to be here to let us know anything that he might have, and he had an unfortunate incident today, and Mr. Bove is going to tell us about that.
Thank you, Chairman and Council. Eddie Kraus had a family emergency today which involved the passing of a loved one. With that being said, I know Eddie was going to give a general description of where we're at with the Justice Center. However, I can let you know the little bit that I know. There has been extensive discussions between regional collaboration, Eddie's department, Public Safety and Justice Services, Public Works, the courts, and there's an ongoing discussion with Mr. Applebaum and the architect, and I apologize, I don't have his name, but the architect is preparing several different drawings, if I may, to present and decide in the coming weeks, I presume. So.
Right. Just a general update. It's an important issue regarding Cuyahoga County going forward, and it's a big issue. And we just want to extend to the executive that the council's here and ready to work with him and his team. And we understand specifics can't be discussed because there are none, but it seems to me that we're moving in a forward motion, which makes, I think, all of us quite happy. And then the tough work finding the money is going to come down the road. So,
Sure.
Anyone have anything, Mr. Miller?
Mr. Chairman, Chief, the alternative plans that are being developed, do they all involve rehab, or do they all involve building new, or are there some of each?
I'm confident to stand there to say that the new is what I know about. I don't know if there's rehab.
Yeah. So
I haven't been directly involved other than the sheriff's part of it. So, but it's new as far as I know.
Yeah.
And do you know what the timetable is for having a plan in place?
I do not.
You do not. Okay. Mr. Chairman, to the chief and to the committee, I want to raise again a question that the chairman rose in committee a couple weeks ago that's relevant to this, which is what the efforts are around reducing the population. And we talked about the home detention measures being used at least to some degree, perhaps not as fully as we had hoped. And I think as we get into the process of planning for what the Justice Center looks like in the future, I think it's very important that we be very intentional, that we gotta reduce the prison population every year on an ongoing basis. we just can't keep jailing thousands, and the more that we do, it just means that we're not going to have money to spend on job training. We're not going to have money for mental health care. We're not going to have money for closing the achievement gap. We're not going to have money for mental health services, for all the things that actually help people. And if we just accept for and plan for the idea that we're going to need a very large facility and we're going to have to jail a lot of people, well, then I assure you that's what's going to happen. So I think as part of this whole process, we have to have a plan as to how we're going to steadily bring the population down so that we don't need the largest facility that we could think of. And I would appreciate any response.
Chairman and Councilman Miller, first of all, our marching orders from the county executive is fairness and equity throughout the whole system. And I can assure you, before I came to the meeting today, that I've met with Judge John Russo and Sheriff Cliff Pinckney, and the GPS program is up to around 150, and increasing that number to 300 is clearly our goal before the end of the year. And I think Judge Russo is a great partner with Sheriff Pinckney in trying to get to that goal. That being said, that clearly brings the population down to 300. We also looked at different ways to enhance sentencing. If a person's sentenced to 6 months in a jail, 3 months in the facility, and then 3 months on home detention. So we're coming up with a lot of different options for the judges to use as we speak.
For the budget as we go forward, you may want to prepare that cost savings when we do hit 300. So the cost savings between now and 300 is 150. So what that is would be helpful.
I can confidently say it's close to $2 million a year if we get under 300 of the population we have now.
The only reason I say that is I mentioned that to somebody and they challenged that, and I said, well, we'll get the numbers and we'll show it to you.
Okay.
As with everything I have found in the system, in particular with the courts, there's pushback. So as long as we go in with, facts and figures, we're going to be in a good spot.
Yep.
But going forward, I think what we've learned with the Juvenile Justice Center, all the problems that we ran into and what we have to deal with these so many years soon thereafter at opening, we want to avoid that. And I think one of the most important things as we move forward on the Justice Center and the rebuilding of it somewhere else, preferably, those of us that had to deal with that building and the jail and the facility itself realize the problems that are there that just are not going to be corrected by throwing $300 million into it to buy 20 more years, if that. But one of the most important things going to be is to find experts that build jails and justice centers and to follow the advice of the experts and not necessarily those that want things within the justice center and the jail. We have to build what we need and what's functional, and that's what we need. And what we don't need is what happened with the Juvenile Justice Center with this huge monstrosity that is not functional as a justice center. Wouldn't be going forward. They build them differently, and I'm not an expert, and I think we have to take the opinion and the stance that none of us are experts. We're going to have to rely on somebody that does this for a living and just sit back and let them run this train. And when elected officials get involved, things go bad, and we have the proof of that with the Juvenile Justice Center, and that's what I think our mission should be, is to avoid at all costs. So hopefully, as the executive unveils their program, that will be a big part of it going forward.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Moore.
Chief, what's the status of the negotiations with the city of Cleveland over the Cleveland jail takeover, and how does that fit into the rest of this picture?
There's two negotiations going on presently, and we're I hate to use the sentence "we're getting close," but we are having continuous conversation with them. But there's also the component of Bedford Heights Jail that would help with the overflow when we take over the Cleveland prisoners. So both discussions are going on at the same time, and I'm comfortable to say that we're closer than we've ever been. So I know the law department's been assisting us in preparing a new contract with Cleveland that whatever we feel comfortable with, and as soon as we have a product or a deal, clearly I'll be standing back in front of council.
Mr. Germano.
Mr. Chairman, I normally am very attuned and agree with most everything Councilman Miller has to say. But I think we've got to be realists, and the thing that we've got to make sure we have enough space, because it's violent out there. I'm just, every once in a while I hate to turn the news on because somebody's getting shot up somewhere. There's people on recreational vehicles terrorizing neighborhoods and so on. It would be a great goal of reducing prison population, but we have to make sure that we have it adequate to protect the people and put away those that are a danger to neighborhoods, because it's pretty violent out there. And so I think we've got to really be realistic on trying to, because if it's not built adequately, then the extra costs that are going to come into play might be significant.
Councilman Germano, we're cognizant of that, and the facility that we're proposing or looking at before the experts take it over, I think will be plenty of room to include, the condition of the GPS, but clearly we understand that. So
Again, the importance of people that know what they're doing as opposed to elected officials that have hopes and wants, and those are all well and good, but those ended up being the Juvenile Justice Center, which is the clear example that will be the unfortunately shining negative star out there that we don't want to repeat. We want to do it right this time and the right way, where the jailers and the judges and those using the facility get what they need, not necessarily what they want, but what they need. So,
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Miller.
I certainly agree that we can't do it the same way that we did the Juvenile Justice Center, and that there was a lot done that wasn't needed. There's a lot of space out there that doesn't get effectively used, and it's just more than necessary in both sides and amenities. I do also at the same time want to sound a cautionary note around the idea of just turning this over to the experts who do this for a living. And the reason why I sound a cautionary note on that is that there's a whole very profitable industry that has developed around housing and dealing with prisoners, and if you just leave it to the industry, that you can get some of the same problems that you had at the Juvenile Justice Center in a different way. And so what I'm saying is that we, both the administration and the council working together, I think that that there is a place for us as the public policy leaders to also be involved, and I certainly agree about the dangers out there and the need to have the people that have to be kept away from society. I don't have any question about that. But I also know that there's an awful lot of people in jail for nonviolent offenses. A lot of it drug and alcohol related. An awful lot of people waiting longer than they need to for their trials to take place, and there's just ways we could find to do better, and I think we need to be public safety oriented in a big way, but we also need to be public safety smart. So that's what I'm suggesting.
Through the chair to the chief, currently, is there a preliminary plan or discussion on which entity would need what in terms of what we were just talking about? Is there some kind of way that we can talk with the various departments that would go into the new Justice Center now and find out what exactly they need, so we can have some kind of picture and plan for that when we have architects or people are bidding, because we already know what we need?
Well, I could speak for the Sheriff's Office, Chairman and Councilwoman. We have met with the Applebaum and the architect to determine, and clearly when the dust settles, there'll be professionals building the place. But what they've done with the Sheriff's Department that I've been part of, and I know they've had conversations with the courts on what works and what doesn't work, and that's the plan that they're putting together. And clearly they want the average of our population and how to construct a new efficient building that serves all the needs, but clearly that archaic building doesn't serve all the needs at this time, even though we make the best of it. So I know there's conversations going on with the groups, and unfortunately I'm not in the middle of those particular with the courts and stuff, but I know those are being addressed. And so whatever the courts, best practices, new modern facilities, I know that they're designing those to present to everybody, and then that's when we bring the professionals in to actually build it.
So I'm just wondering, how do we determine what works versus what people want? How do we make sure on our end that we're getting what works versus
Actually, I talked to Judge Russo about this when I met with him regarding the budget. And I don't know if it's the Association of State Courts or whatever, there are national institutions that we would be relying on to be making these recommendations, who build these facilities throughout the nation. So we will have direction as far as the needs of the court, not necessarily are going to be what individual judges want, but what is recommended as standards going forward. And as far as the jails, again, as standards going forward will be based on national input from experts nationally. Right. Where things seem to get accelerated and a little out of control is when you invite opinion from inside. Then people start getting things that they want again, as opposed to what they need. And that, I would argue, Mr. Miller, is where we step in and have to make decisions, whether or not they're tough or not, as to we have expert opinion as opposed to what you might want. That's where we're going to have to do a balancing act. So it's going to be a collaborative with the local users along with national experts that'll be making recommendations, and I'm comfortable if we stay focused on the need as opposed to the want. Mr. Dever, I saw you.
Yeah, just to follow up, as many of you know, a few short years ago, we did a general assessment of the facility to look at it, what were the needs for the building and whatnot, and that was concluded in 2014. So that kind of gave us an overview of the Justice Center and the agencies and the people that utilize it. So that gave us a good starting point for some of these further discussions that are going to happen. But that facility assessment and planning document was a good base to start with for these future discussions. And that was they clearly mapped out, what are the standards for space for, how courts utilize or how jails are. And so, like I said, it was a good base to start this further discussion that's going to be taking place in the near future.
Thank you. Mr. Miller.
Mr. Chairman, Chief, when did the current Justice Center open for business?
1975.
1975. So we're at 40 years.
40 years.
My question is that the best that's achievable, or can the new facilities be built to last longer than that?
I would not have an answer for that. I would hope they would.
Director?
Well, what I would say
in your
is,
area.
Well, currently, the assessment of the facility, what's come back from that is that most of the systems in the building need to be replaced. So with all that, from the electrical systems to the plumbing systems to the elevator systems, so that's a significant cost in itself. They've reached their end of their useful life. How electricity into that building now has expanded, data communications, that's expanded also, and how those floors are laid out. So it needs to be, there's going to need to be some type of adjustment. So it sounds like where the discussion is going is, do you improve that, and do you rehabilitate that, or do you go in a different direction? One clear thing to mention also is that there's space needs. We have certain functions that are outside of the Justice Center, be it over at the Marion Building. I think we've talked about that before, where probation is. Really, that should be brought into the Justice Center again and housed in there. There's many functions over at Courthouse Square also.
Mr. Chairman, Director, I appreciate your response. My question was actually more about the next facility than the current facility. My question is, if in fact the direction we go is to build a new facility, can a new facility be built to last us more than 40 years? Or can the next facility last us longer than this facility has lasted us? Or is that about the best that you can do?
Well, I don't believe it's the best you can do. There's many things that were built over time that have survived for hundreds of years. And I think the structure, the foundation of the Justice Center, can last us for another 40 years. But it's the inside of the Justice Center and how it currently functions today, I think, is the question. But I think you could probably get another 40 years out of the Justice Center, the foundation. But it's the innards, the mechanical systems, and how that functions today too. Are the courtrooms, should they be upgraded? There's more. To your question, you can get the additional years, but you still got to put a lot of money into that facility also, okay, to get to that next 40. So.
Okay, thank you.
It's the standard good money after bad. And keep in mind, when the Justice Center opened, it had one jail. Then we had to add jail 2. People forget that. And all the things that we had to put into that underground garage with the leaking and the problems there, it is a mess. And that's not even counted adding jail 2 and all the upkeep that we put in there, and the thing's still falling apart. It's just, to me, I haven't heard an argument, one, that makes sense in putting money into that facility. It's just, it was built to last. It was designed to build to last, they said, but it didn't. And it's proof positive it hasn't, just by the addition of jail 2. It was poorly designed, and it has not lived up to what it was told to us in 1975.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I don't think that in the long run any option for using an existing facility for this building that we're sitting in right now would have done us as well as we're going to do with this building. You know, so while I certainly want to consider all options, I'm also very much open to what you're suggesting.
Right. And again, I'm gonna admit publicly I have no idea going forward. I'm gonna rely on the experts, and those that we hire to be our experts are gonna be our guiding light. And keep in mind, if we do have situations like Juvenile Justice Center, if I'm relying on experts to make the call, all of a sudden the elected officials are off the hook, and that $670,000 is going to be on those experts that made that call, not us. So again, learning a lesson from the recent past to the hopefully soon-to-be future of justice facilities in Cuyahoga County. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Committee, thank you. Good discussion, Mr. Miller. Appreciate your input. Mr. Harrison, you have anything? Miscellaneous business, anyone? Okay, other public comment?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Reverend Pinckney.
Thank you for that information. That was very enlightening. I want to speak to you, Chairman, about something very, very seriously. Very, very serious. And I know I said 672 million instead of 672,000 for that last item, but it's going to boil down to more than 672 million when you count up the cost for real.
Believe me,
but anyway,
I'm with you.
Okay. I just heard one of you make a very bold statement. It was you, I believe, Chairman, about the accountability of elected officials and judges pertaining to this new judicial or justice center project. And I don't believe the guy is one who is fickle or confused or just does things by happen chance. I came here today, and I had brought a young lady with me who I met who is homeless with her child, and she left out of fear. Because if she got before you to tell you her concerns, they would have lined up to take her child from her and cause her more damage. But that's not why I came today. And I asked her to stay, but she was afraid and she left. I came today because I officially have law enforcement officers, judges, and other county officials conspiring to murder me. On yesterday, my landlord, Mr. Jimmy Pope, has been stalking me and harassing me and doing horrible things to me and trying to make me homeless again.
We don't want to get personal here. So.
Okay. And we can get into the gory details at another time when we're not on camera. But I wanted to walk out of my apartment at 8 o'clock in the morning yesterday, and he and some strange-looking, not very clean-looking man were in my hallway taking pictures of me. I felt very violated. I called 911, and I was also instructed to call 911 from a housing court specialist. The dispatcher on 911 would not only send me a car, but the dispatcher tried to get into verbal altercation with me over my safety and minimize what took place. I ultimately came downtown and was downtown trying to conduct my affairs and was told that I could get a police report done from an officer downtown. The Cleveland police, when they found out I was trying to get a police report done, scattered so they couldn't do the report, and then told me they wouldn't do it. Why I'm coming to you, Chairman Gallagher, is because I believe it's very unreasonable and unfair to me that I report crimes taking place against me, and I can prove to you that Cuyahoga County law enforcement officers have been conspiring to murder me, as well as judges. I saw Mayor Jackson on last evening, and please, Councilman Germana, I mean no disrespect. I'm closing. I heard your clock. Mm-hmm. This is documentation of just some of it, and I'll take my seat now. But I do need your assistance, and I did follow your instructions,
Right.
and nothing has transpired.
If you have any concerns going forward, and there's very few people that I would trust more than Mr. Bova, very few. If he can't help you,
I can't reach him.
he's sitting right there.
I can't reach him. After today, I can't reach him.
If he can't help you, we have an inspector general here in the county, and if you suspect that someone is doing anything,
I wrote to him, and
Off-putting.
he's running me around in circles. I wrote to him. I have a letter. I will give you a copy of it right now with me.
again, we have a system in place, and I would hope that it would work for you, but that's what I would recommend that you do.
Okay.
As a body, we have no control over your concerns. I wish we did, but we do not. But we have people in place in high office that are there to help, and I'm hoping that they can help you. And understand, we might get to a point in time where they can't help. And that's an unfortunate reality that sometimes we deal with. But I would recommend that if you're uncomfortable talking to anybody, you wouldn't be uncomfortable talking to the Inspector General, who is independent of everyone in the county, and he would be able to at least guide you. I don't know if he can get to a resolution for you, but he could at least in some fashion guide you to what he would recommend you do.
You know, Councilman, I hear you, and been there, and I was directed to that person. And what they do, like when you all are doing these committee meetings and different things, and you send me to the places I'm supposed to go, they don't really help me, and they lie, and they send me running around in a bunch of circles, and even the judicial process. Not one time has the sheriff's department, the city police department, or anyone investigated the crimes committed against me. And the only reason I come to you, council members, is because I've exhausted every measure possible, and you're paying these people by allocating funding to them for my best interest, and they're not doing it. And I met one angel in this process recently who really saw what was taking place, and I will give you her name, and we can take it from there.
Okay, thank you very much. We're adjourned.